todos. Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about letters of recommendation, a very important topic for the Fulbright Garcia Robles scholarships or grants, but also a really important topic for the graduate admission process in general. So we are very happy to have with us a specialist in this topic. For all of you that don't know, there are some institutions, U.S. institutions that has offices in Mexico, most of them in Mexico City, but there are a few institutions in the U.S. That have offices here. And one of them is the University of Southern California. And today we have the pleasure that the director of this office is with us. She's going to talk to you about why the letters of recommendation is so important. And she is Angela McCracken. She is also a very good friend of Education USA. She's very familiar with all the activities that we do. And she is always happy to help us. She is a bilingual and bicultural global administrator, motivated by curiosity. She likes creating value through collaboration and increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So without further ado, thank you, Angela, for being here. As you can tell, this information session is going to be conducted in English, but as usual, if you have any questions or doubts, please address those to the chat, and we will be happy to answer them. And thank you, Angela, for being here.
Thank you, Mabel and Jenny. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Education USA is a wonderful, valuable resource. I'm so happy to be invited here with you today. This preparation for your application to Fulbright Garcia Robles will help you with that. It will help you with applying to universities. And I am very happy to share my experience because I also did apply to graduate school. I studied my PhD in international relations at USC. I did my undergraduate at the University of California, Santa Cruz. So I'm sharing based on my own experience and years of experience. I was a professor once and a graduate assistant for many years. Feel free to ask questions in Spanish. I know Education USA wants us all to practice our English, but I still love to practice my Spanish as well. So why are recommendation letters so important? I think just it's good to know what the purpose is for you to think about how you want it to come, how you want to influence the process. And this is our chance as admissions to evaluate your ability based on a third party who has done what you are applying to do. So somebody's already gone through this process, like me. I do write recommendation letters. So I've already done a PhD. So I can write a good letter of recommendation for somebody who wants to do a PhD because I know what it takes. I'm not invested, so I'm not a family member. Don't ask your family members. And I'm considered like a credible scientific opinion. And also it's a peer recommendation. So it's one professor recommending to another professor or one business person recommending to another business person. And the questions that Fulbright Garcia Robles asks and the universities asks are actually trying to get an informal ranking of your excellence compared to the other students in your classes. And this is more important now because many programs are not requiring the GRE. So they have less information about how good you are in comparison to the other students. And then most important of all, this is one thing that you can still influence, because I think most of you have already finished your classes and you have your grades. So that's done. You can't do any better. Right now, you can get a good statement of purpose, and you can influence a little bit this process of recommending letters. And I will tell you, recommendation letters was definitely the reason that I got into the PhD program fully paid. I wouldn't have been able to do it without a good letter of recommendation. So, who to ask? The important thing is that this is somebody who can speak in a meaningful way about you. So I wrote here, you should know them for 1 year or more. It doesn't have to be a full year. It could be you spent the summer in their research lab. So it was an intense 3 months where you really spent a lot of time with them. It needs to be somebody who's worked closely with you, overseen your work in the classroom, in the lab, or at work, so that they can speak about your qualities. Like, they're going to look for things, not just your grades, but how much leadership potential you have, how creative you are, how mature you are in dealing with problems. So what we call soft skills. So it's got to be somebody who's worked closely with you to be able to speak about your maturity. And in a supervisory, an oversight capacity. And also that there's somebody who's already done what you want to do. So this is where it depends what kind of program you're going to apply to, who you ask. So there's somebody that knows you and they've overseen you. But if you're going into an MBA or other applied masters, like a master's in public policy, they're going to ask you for employment references because it's applied, right? Applied to the labor market. So they want to know how good you are in business or in policy field. If you're going to a PhD or a scientific research program, the letter writers should have a PhD, be doing research, and be publishing research. So they've already done what you're doing, and you want to make sure that they continue to be part of the scientific community. Because if they're publishing, they're in conversation with the faculty at the school that you're applying to. They're part of the scientific, or what we call the epistemic community. They'll probably know each other by name, if not personally, by reputation. So the point being, you're looking for people who both know you well and also know the type of program that you're going into and your capacity to be successful in it. And obviously, choose professors that gave you high grades in their classes, or hired you to do research with them, or you volunteered in their lab, because they're likely to speak highly of you. So again, they're all going to be required, both with Fulbright Garcia Robles and with the universities. They're going to be required to answer questions like, out of students in the last 5 years, what ranking does this student have among them? Like, what are they in the top 5%, top 10%, top 30%? So you want to make sure that you're not in the top 30% of their students. You want to choose the professors where you're the top 10 or top 5%, because Fulbright Garcia Robles is very competitive. So Sorry, is there a question? Oh, okay. So this is actually, I just remembered, this is just a general for graduate programs. So I don't know what the requirement is for Fulbright Garcia Robles, but whichever program you're applying to Fulbright Garcia Robles, you're applying to USC or a different university, different program, look specifically, do they want 3 academic references? That would be all professors, or do they want a mix of academic and professional references from employment? It depends on the program that you're applying to, what they will accept. But if you're applying to Fulbright Garcia Robles for a PhD, and like you want to get the grant so that you can do a PhD, they should be academic references. And yeah. What's this one? When to ask. So this is how to prepare. I think most of you are applying right now. So this might not apply, but if you're not already preparing your application, plan ahead by taking multiple classes with the same professor so that they know you over a full year or more. Or take a class and volunteer in their lab, apply to work with them at an organization. Try to have more than one class, more time, and also more different types of activities. Like if you do a student club, ask a professor that you already took a class with, that you like, that you want to be your mentor, ask them to be an advisor on your student club. Apply to work with their organizations or their labs or whatever. Try to get more interaction so that they see more of your qualities and that you learn more from them. So they will be not only a good letter writer, but a good mentor, which that's ideally your recommenders will be your mentors, people who are invested in your success and will help you be successful. They'll write better letters. So you're planning ahead by being strategic about the professors that you look to for mentorship. And then at the end of the class or at the end of a period of time with them, start having a conversation with them. What do they require for to write a recommendation letter? So I had a professor that had a sheet of paper that said, if you want to ask for a recommendation letter, this is what you have to do. And then you know how much time notice you need to give them in advance of the deadline, or if they need supplemental materials, if they have a minimum grade point average that you need to have in order to ask them for a letter of recommendation or things like that. You also start the conversation and let them know, I'm interested in going to graduate school and I'd be interested in your mentorship and your assistance with a letter of recommendation. So hopefully the relationship is bigger than just the letter of recommendation. So if you haven't done this yet and you're already working on applying, I would say do that now. Start that conversation now. But if you're planning for a little further out, ask for the information and then continue to interact with those professors. If you're in the research track, continue to talk to them about their research, ask for their guidance on your research ideas, visit their office hours, try to work and publish a paper with them or do a presentation at a conference with them. If you're in a master's or an applied program, keep in touch, send them update emails. I get update emails. I've got a new job. Thank you for your help with your recommendation. I'm doing well. These are the projects I've done. And I am I'm able to write better letters of recommendation for the people who stay in touch with me over a longer period of time, because I get to know them better. I get more invested. I'm more part of their career path. And connect with them on LinkedIn. Visit them, keep them updated. So in any case, we should all be doing this now with all of our mentors. But it's not too late. These are about building relationships that will hopefully last a lifetime. Because I continue to ask for letters of recommendation from people that wrote me like letters years ago. I still need those relationships. I still want to have those mentorship relationships. And with the people that I've written letters for, I want to stay in touch with them and I want them to be successful. So how to make the actual ask? So we're just developing this mentorship relationship, right? Then we want to actually ask for the letter. And if they don't have guidelines, I recommend ask 4 to 8 weeks before the deadline, but not during final exams or the really busy part of the semester if they're professors. So how to actually make the ask? It's an opportunity to see them in person, really ideally, or now on Zoom. I suggest asking for an appointment to talk. If you haven't spoken with them yet, ask for a chance to speak to them about your plans to apply to graduate school. Because if they've already done it, they will have good advice. Maybe better advice than me because they know you, they know your interests, they know their field better than I do. So they could suggest universities or programs, faculty, other people to talk to. Talk to them about your plans, that you're applying to for Fulbright Garcia Robles. Maybe they had one of these, maybe they're on the panel, the selection panel, and they can give you feedback, how to prepare. And also ask them that you'd let them know why you're meeting with them, because you see them as a mentor, because of what you learned from them in class or at work, and that you'd like them to consider writing a letter of recommendation for you. So that is in an in-person or Zoom type of appointment, a formal professional meeting, asking for guidance. And then you have another chance, if you haven't already, to ask them if they have any preferences about how you ask for a letter of recommendation or the amount of time of notice that they need before the deadline. And then you can make a formal written request. If they are amenable to the idea of, and they agree, I could write you a letter of recommendation, then you make a formal written request and include, I'm not sure if I wrote all these down. Well, I think on the next slide, I have a list of the things to include. Let me see. Yes. I write a cover letter for each letter of recommendation that I'm requesting. The cover letter will say, I'm applying to the USC Price School of Public Policy, Master of Public Policy. So include the name, where it is, the program, and a brief description. This is a top 3 university public policy program, that has a strength in urban politics, and that's why I'm applying. The deadline is this. What the instructions, sorry, this is just general, like this, you can translate it to Fulbright Garcia Robles as well, but what their instructions are, you will need to answer these questions. You'll need to speak to my potential for leadership, my diligence, or whatever the questions are. And then include, after the cover letter, a statement of purpose. It can be a draft, an updated curriculum vitae, which should include everything, all your honors, the classes that you took with this professor, or the work that you did with the person that you're requesting the letter from. And then include your academic transcripts, your history at school. And then include somewhere, either on the cover letter if it fits, or in a separate page, things that you would like them to comment on. So think about why you've chosen the program that you're applying to and what they are looking for. as well as your history with this professor. So we have many, many students over many, many years. We don't have the best memory. You can make it easier for your letter writer by making these suggestions. It's completely acceptable and expected, and it's helpful for us. If you say, I took the class on methods with you and I wrote this paper that really got me started on this topic of gender and migration. And so you say, you know, I really learned a lot about that, and that's why I started getting into research. And then we did this project or whatever. You remind them of the things that you would like them to speak about that are directly relevant to your application. So you can basically plan this out where you're writing in your statement of purpose, your side, and your faculty recommender or your employment recommender is complementing what you've written by saying, yeah, I've seen this part of Angela's development. And the more detailed and specific to you it is, the better it looks on the selection committee. So if you provide these suggestions based on what the selection committee is looking for and your relationship with your letter recommender, then their letter can be really tailored to what you need for that application. So I do one of these for each application. In this case, applying to the Fulbright Garcia Robles, you can do one, right? Because they're just applying to Fulbright Garcia Robles, just to Comexis. But think about this, in the future, you will need to do 4, 6 or more programs. And so I would do a separate cover letter for each one, because I want the letter of recommendation to be tailored to the program that I'm applying to. I've been on selection committees. I've had the honor to be on the Fulbright Garcia Robles selection committees and seen letters written to the wrong institution. It's not that bad, but it doesn't look great. It looks like maybe the letter writer didn't have enough time, or maybe didn't care as much about this, or maybe the applicant didn't give the correct information. So this, it looks like a simple list, but it takes quite a while to really prepare all of this, including your statement of purpose. But you want your letter writer to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. And that's why that first meeting is really helpful, to get their feedback, get them invested in this process, and get them to support you further with the letter. And then the follow-up. You submitted the formal request with your CV, your statement of purpose, deadline, and instructions 4 to 8 weeks ahead of the deadline. If they haven't submitted the letter of recommendation, maybe 2 weeks before the deadline, check first that it hasn't been received, and then you write a cordial follow-up with them. Is there any more information that I can provide? And that's it. It's a nice reminder. I love to be reminded because I have a lot of things going on. So a nice, friendly reminder is always welcome. And then after the process is finished, let your recommenders know the outcome. Because like I said, we're developing lifelong relationships of mentorship. And I want to know how it went. I'd love to know, especially if my letter might have helped. And with that, I think that's it. Do we have any questions? I do want to leave my contact. Oh, and I work for USC. I'm going to give you my contact. If you're interested in speaking to me about any of our programs or more in depth about this topic or other topics, I have a calendar for individual appointments. I'm happy to meet with you. Part of my job is to increase Mexico and Mexicans at USC. I'm just going to give you my contact here and mention USC. I didn't give a presentation about USC, but it is the largest private university in California. So we have a little bit of everything, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you, Angela, for that great introduction. Hopefully you clear up some doubts. I would like to clarify something. We can talk about this probably more next Wednesday with Marin, but for those of you that are applying for Fulbright, once you open the application, the online application that you need to fill out, they are going to request at least one academic letter of recommendation and one professional letter of recommendation. And the third one, because you need 3 letters of recommendation, the third one, you can choose whatever field you consider is stronger for you. Okay. That being said, if it's okay, we're gonna read some of the questions that we have on the chat, and also after we can let some other participants speak up their questions. So Alejandro says, hello, I had a professor that now is my boss. Do you recommend that writing the letter as a past professor or as my current boss, or both?
I think it would be both. So they would include it on their letterhead where their current position is. That's who they are. That's how they write the letter. But on the suggestions, when you meet with them and when you send them a list of things that you would like them to comment on for the application, you can include, I took the class on theory with you in spring 2021, and you gave me a 10. I think the more detail you provide, the easier it is for them to provide a detailed letter. So you gave me a 10. I wrote an article. I wrote a paper on this topic, and you commented that it was the best paper of the year, or whatever your positive interactions were with them. Just list a few of the things that you would like them to comment on. You know, it's hard if they're your boss now and they were your professor, they probably know you really, really well, but just maybe take out the highlights that you think of your whole relationship would really support your application, because you know better than anyone the program that you're applying to, because you're also doing research on the programs that you're applying to, and how you know what's going to be in your statement of purpose and what's going to be in your CV, and how you need them to support that application. I really need somebody to talk about how independent and creative I am, because that doesn't really show up in my CV or my academic transcripts, something like that.
Okay, thank you, Angela, for that. And yeah, I have the same, I echo on that, on what you said, actually. Also, Gabriel is asking, hi, does the time of the collaboration matters? For example, if I graduate 5 years ago, will a recommendation of my former faculty professor will be useful, or should I search for more recent recommendations?
It depends on the program, but I definitely, like Fulbright Garcia Robles is asking for at least one academic recommendation. So in that case, you would need to ask for a professor from 5 years ago. 5 years is not that long. You'll realize once you get older, but it's not that long. But that's again why it's helpful to meet with them. Ideally, you would maintain a relationship with them over the last 5 years, but if you haven't, reach out to them and ask for a meeting. that I would like to speak to you about my plans to apply to graduate school, and I'm applying to the Fulbright Garcia Robles. Would you have time to meet with me? You talk to them about, I mean, why would you talk to them in particular? Surely they gave you a good grade, but also you want somebody who is in an area related to what, did they inspire you? I took the class with you. I learned about this. I'm excited to continue my studies. What do you think about these universities that I'm looking at these programs that I'm looking at? Do you have recommendations? And would you consider writing a letter of recommendation? Take with you your transcripts, your CV, and something like a statement of purpose so that you can show them you're very serious, and remind them, because it's been 5 years, remind them how great of a student you were, and talk about the class that you took with them, to remind them about the class and about you. And they'll see in the interview with you as well that you're well presented, that you're serious, that you're prepared. And that's a chance for them to redevelop this relationship and write a letter of recommendation. So absolutely, they can write, and that would hold a lot of weight. If you're applying to a PhD program, they need to be professors from 5 or many years ago. They need to be people who are in research positions. So I don't know your current work, but in that type of case, you don't want to focus too much on current work. But if it is more of an applied, more of a like a master's applied to an industry, then I think 2 more recent work-related letters would be more appropriate, and 1 academic.
Thank you, Angela. And I think our next question is probably you kind of answer it before. Would it be a good recommendation? Would it be a good recommendation, a letter from my English teacher at college? I know her for many years now, about 6 years, and I took a couple of classes and workshops with her. Or the recommendation letter only can come from professors that are involved in my major, which in this case is architecture.
Okay. If you're applying to a master's of architecture, I think 1 letter from somebody who knows you really well in a different field would be okay, if they can speak to qualities beyond your ability to speak English. I think that is the drawback with an English teacher, but can they speak to your ability? Did you do a leadership project in class? Did you demonstrate other skills besides English in the classes with her? And I also just wanted to go back to my last answer, because it sounded like I contradicted Mabel, but you need you need one work letter, 1 employment letter for Fulbright Garcia Robles. But if you're going to a PhD, you're going to need that 3rd academic reference for most PhD programs. So start working on it now. Go meet with your professors. But yeah, so if you're doing a master's in architecture, I could see her being a good recommender. But you want, as much as possible, your letter writers to be speaking to what the program is looking for. So Fulbright Garcia Robles is looking for a broad set of qualities and characteristics that show that you will be successful and exceptional, outstanding in what you do. I believe an English teacher that knows you really well, and if you did a lot of projects, could speak to that. But if you're applying to a program in Masters of Architecture, it might be harder for her to speak to your ability to be successful in a Masters of Architecture. So I would lean toward people who can speak to what the program is looking for.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, that sounds about right. So selecting your recommenders is also a very important task. So try to identify people that can, as Angela mentioned, share with the readers that you are more than a good student, that you have leadership abilities, that you have any other type of skills that are good for succeed in graduate programs beyond your professional field. Okay. And if I think also you can discuss this topic with your Education USA advisors. They are a great resource for you to tell them, I have option A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Which one should I pick, right? We have more questions, and Hela, a lot of questions actually. So let me, oh my God. The same person is asking, Oscar, also, if I have a recommendation letter from an architect I've been work closely for a couple of years, but he's not an urban planner, and I want to apply to the urban planning master's degree, will that be a problem to get into the program?
No, I don't think so. And that's one reason you have a few letters. I think architecture, especially if you've been working with them closely, is very related to urban planning. And you should check out USC because we have one of the top urban planning studies programs in the United States. But yeah, I think that's a good fit.
Thank you, Angela. And just please check. We're gonna share a USC link here, and remember you have to include some universities when applying to Fulbright, so you can take a look at the variety of programs that USC has. Okay, Esteban asks, does it matter if my recommendators studied in England, or it will be better look for professors who study in the US?
Oh, no, that's fine. Absolutely fine. I think more important is that they have a degree. Hopefully it's, a degree appropriate to what you're going to study. They've already studied something similar to you. And in the case of PhD applications, that they continue to do research and publish.
Thank you. Diego is asking, if I am working as a professional, should I include only a letter from my current boss or also one of my former professors? The problem with the professors is that they have the students or the alumni write down their letters.
Yeah, well, so Fulbright, Garcia Robles, and pretty much any university program are going to require at least one academic letter from a professor. So yes, I think you should all start cultivating those relationships with your former professors now. And I would, if you use this model of asking for an appointment to discuss your goals and ask for their guidance, that would be an opportunity to discuss if their requirement is that one of their students write the letter of recommendation. You could talk to them and say, it would be really valuable for me if it were from you, if you could comment on these topics. At the end of the day, we can't control how they write a letter, but if you think that it's going to be like a very simple or a not very good letter, I would look for somebody else.
Thank you, Angela. Also, If I have been hired by a professor for projects and also he has been my supervisor, does that count as an academic or as a professional letter?
Oh, you've worked with him on projects and at work, right? You haven't taken a class with them, then they can't comment on your development in an academic sense. But it sounds like a great recommendation letter for a work related, because it's somebody who clearly knows your field very well and has demonstrated expertise and a level of success, so they can comment well on your ability, your potential to develop in that field. So that's a great work reference.
Thank you, Angela. We have more questions coming in. In the scenario that I have recently graduated and I don't have any professional field experience, a part of my social service, how could I get any recommendation letter on the professional side?
Okay. Well, for the university, we would think that a letter from your social service supervisor would be great. Would that be true for Fulbright Garcia Robles as well?
I will think so, but just to make sure, I think it will be better to address this question next Wednesday with Mary, because we're going to have a Q&A session where you can all clear up this doubt.
Okay.
Another question from Gabriel. Thank you, Angela. And for professional recommendations, would you prefer a higher official leader in the industry, like doctor from Harvard, although it's not that recent, or a more recent recommendation?
Yeah, I think it's not so important whether it's recent. It's more, and it's not so important whether they are very high level. It's most important that they know you. Even if it was from a few years ago, hopefully you took a couple of classes with them. If it's somebody that you just took one class with, that's not a great person. You know, they don't know you that well. So I would look for somebody that knows you better. And second to that would be their ability to comment on your ability to go into the program. So if you're applying to a program at Harvard and this professor did that same program, and then you took a class with that professor and you got the best score of the year, and they could really say, this is the best student, and they can do that program, then that would be a good recommendation. But sort of only in that case, right? So you need to have a conversation with them about whether they, you know, look at your experience and your interactions with them. How important is their recommendation to you being admitted? Remember, admissions committees are just looking to find a good fit for you and for themselves. They need to make sure that you're going to be successful in their program, because we as universities and programs are ranked. We are ranked by how well our students do, what percentage graduate, how fast they graduate, how quickly they get a job when they graduate, how much money they make when they graduate, how much money they donate to us. These are all factors to evaluate the level of success of our students. So we are just going to try to be evaluating whether you can be successful in our program in order to maintain the quality of our program and the reputation of our student body.
Thank you, Angela. Another question, and I think we have talked about this before. Should we look letters from professors that have a master's or a doctorate in case we are going to a master or a doctorate program?
Yes. If you're applying to a PhD, you want letters from people who have done a PhD. If you're going into a professional doctorate, like a doctor of education or a doctor of management, or a master's, which is also applied. These are all applied in the sense that they are not scientific, they're not research-based programs. Then you can go with somebody who's either had a similar degree or reached a similar level of success in that field, like a supervisor.
Thank you. And Gabriel is asking if you can share your Calendly on the chat because he's interested in USC.
Okay. Great. Yes, everyone, please get interested in USC. I didn't want to take time talking about it, but we have a top 10 engineering program too. Top 3 public policy, #1 communications school. Oh, Education USA is not allowed to talk about rankings, but I think I'm allowed to talk about rankings, which is just to say these are just very excellent programs.
Thank you for for thinking about Angela. So the Calendly is there. And yeah, take a look at all the programs at USC and book one-on-one appointments with Angela. Just for you to know, there are some Fulbrights, alumni, and current Fulbrights at University of Southern California in different programs. So yeah.
Oh yeah, even more important than that. Sometimes I get distracted. We have full funding for PhD students, and we have scholarships for master's students.
Nice. So we have another question. Do you recommend that the letter come from a coworker who knows me well, or is it be better that it come from my boss?
I could imagine the coworker's letter being the third letter. It's not the most important. So if I get 3 letters and they're just coworkers and no bosses, I'm going to wonder, why didn't you ask your boss? Because your boss knows your work in a boss type of way. So they should be able to speak. You need at least 2 of the letters to be in a supervisory context.
Perfect. And I think Juan Manuel raised his hand a few moments ago. And I don't know, Areli, if you want to say that question out loud, do you want me to read it? There was also another question from Marisol that I would like if you can elaborate a little bit more, because I don't know what do you mean by he's great? But yeah, in the meantime, Juan Manuel, if you want to say your question out loud, will be great.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
All right. Well, nice to meet you. My name is Juan, and I'm applying for the Fulbright. However, I also would like to apply for a PhD in another application directly with the USC. I'm interested in the public policy and management because I'm currently working in the government offices here in Mexico City, and my bachelor's degree is about law, and I also study international relations in Guadalajara. So I think I have a very good profile for that, and I have been doing a little research about these topics. But I didn't know that you have like a kind of opportunity for scholarships, because it's quite expensive for a Mexican to study in that institution. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I can contact you later on your email and talk you a little bit more about me, and you maybe can guide me through the process or.
Yeah, actually, we will be having a visit from our School of Public Policy in a few weeks. Our position is that students should not have to pay for a PhD, and I think you will find that common at the top research universities. So you will get a living stipend, and yeah, you can also. I'll send my email to the chat. if you want to get on the invitation list for like upcoming recruiting events.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much, Angelo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan Manuel. So, okay, last question. Areli, one of the people who knows me best academically is the ex-coordinator of my degree. Even though I don't work directly with her, but he was always aware of my activities, such as research, stays throughout my career. Could it be a good option for a letter?
It's a good question. I'm not sure aware of your activities is meaningful enough of a relationship to be able to talk. So it sounds like this person could repeat what you've already written in your CV and your academic transcripts. It's information that's already available. So you want somebody who you worked directly with so they can say, comment on your creativity, your maturity, with concrete examples, like she organized a group outside of class to do a service project, or some demonstrating qualities of yours with examples that they have directly witnessed. So it would be for you to really evaluate whether this person can talk about you personally or just repeat your CV.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
One more thing. Sorry,
Okay.
can I add? Also, because they have to say, I know this. What I mean by the examples, by demonstrating, they say, I know this because, and not because I saw her in the hallways over 3 or 4 years, and she always told me what she was doing. That's not enough for me to really know. So when I write the letter of recommendation, I say, because they were an intern in my office for 3 months, and they took initiative and they changed the processes in the office. They taught me something. You know, that way I demonstrate this person really had an impact on me, and that's why I'm telling you they're a great person, rather than just, I know this because they told me.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, 2 more questions. Marisol is asking, I want to participate in a PhD, so I worked as a teacher a couple of years ago. If I ask to my former boss a recommendation letter, is it important if he only has a master in architecture?
That could possibly be the third recommendation. We'd have to look at all of your letters. The PhD is a scientific degree, and so they want to know about your ability to make an original contribution to knowledge in your field that you're applying to. So I don't know if you're applying for a PhD in architecture. They could maybe talk about your ability to be creative in architecture, but it sounds like they were a boss, not, I don't know if you were doing research with them. What you really want, at least for the 2 principal letters, is somebody who can talk about your ability to do research and make an original contribution to knowledge. So that is, you know, scientific creativity, scientific curiosity, the ability to understand new material, digest it, and explain difficult concepts, the types of things that are important to a scientific degree. So you would have to evaluate whether that relationship really met those requirements. But on the surface, I would say maybe as a third recommended, but you really need to focus first on those PhD recommendations. Somebody, you know, who can say, I've done that, and I know she can do it too.
Okay, a very interesting question comes from Mar. Could you describe a killer letter of recommendation for a PhD in terms of structure?
Yeah, they will say, you know, I worked with Mabel in my lab or on my research. So they'll demonstrate knowledge of your research interests. That's why it's important to meet with them yesterday or today about your plans to go to graduate school so that they know and they can give you feedback. She has the ability to do science. Hopefully, because you've already done it with them, you've worked in their lab or on their research projects and contributed, been a good contributor, like a creative thinker, a scientific thinker. And demonstrating a familiarity with what your research interests are and your ability to do it. And it's a plus if they are a PhD and publishing in that field, so they can make references to whatever is being published in the field and say, Angela is doing current innovative thinking in this field.
Thank you, Angela. And also, please take into consideration that with your Education USA advisor, you can also you can always reach out and ask for suggestions or comments or resources for you to share with your potential recommenders, so they know exactly what to write, what Fulbright in this case is expecting. Okay, I think there's one more question. What would happen if I don't have any professional experience because I haven't worked in the industry? Can I replace that with any other academic letter?
Well, it sounds like Fulbright needs at least one professional reference. If you're applying to a PhD, for the university, 3 academic references is fine. But if you're applying for an MBA or a Master of Public Administration, you should look for at least one professional reference from your social service, or look for programs that require no experience. If they don't require any experience, like we have a Master's of Finance, it's for people who want to become finance people. You don't have to have any experience. 3 professor letters would be absolutely fine because we don't expect you to have any experience in banking.
Yeah, and maybe another recommendation is that you can ask Marin Comexus directly on this, because maybe in your case, it will be enough with your previous experience, because I mean, we cannot force you to have a professional experience if you are just about to graduate, right? But maybe you have done some interesting projects or work that gives you the ability that normally you will have in a professional environment. So yeah. You can also ask Comexus about that.
Good. And they said it's engineering, and engineering doesn't typically require work experience. That they're an academic reference from the university perspective would be sufficient.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like the ideally scenario. And also take a look on the platform to see if that is a if there is still a requirement, because at least until last year, they were asking for 1 academic, 1 professional, and the third one will be whatever you want. Okay, that will be all. I believe we don't have any more questions. Jenny, I'm not sure if you want to add something, any reminder that you want to share with the students before we say goodbye.
Well, just about our next session this Wednesday at 3 p.m. to answer all these questions that you have for specifically for Comexus. And Angela, just to thank you so much for this amazing session and all these insight that you share with our students. It's also always so helpful for advisors as well. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good luck to all the students, and I hope to see some of you individually.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mariana, Angela already answered that question. If you're looking for more structured material, I'm going to share with you some the WordPress, Education USA WordPress, where you can find some reference about the recommendation letters, or you can reach out to your Education USA advisor to know more in depth about the structure of letters of recommendation. Okay, have a good one, everyone. And see you next Wednesday for a very interesting session. Please, 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 and I'm going to switch to Spanish now. Por favor, para la sesión del miércoles, vengan con preguntas preparadas, preguntas que no hayan sido contestadas, preguntas que tengan que ver, abran sus cuentas de Comexus, los que van a solicitar la beca, abran la plataforma de Comexus. No va a pasar nada si la abren, solamente no le den enviar si es que todavía no tienen nada de documentos. Y muchas veces, desde mi experiencia, muchas de las dudas vienen al momento de llenar su solicitud en la plataforma. Entonces, abran su cuenta en estos días antes de nuestra sesión de Q&A para que puedan preguntarle a Ángela, a Marin, pues preguntas también en referencia a la plataforma. ¿Vale? Solamente eso y buenas noches a todos. Muchísimas gracias, Ángela, nuevamente. Gracias, Jenny. Nos vemos el próximo
Buenas
miércoles.
noches.